The United Kingdom is teetering on the edge of collapse. At the center of this unprecedented crisis stands a billionaire prime minister, Keir Starmer, whose empire of deceit has been obliterated by a seismic Supreme Court ruling. The court's verdict, delivered with the force of a guillotine, demands his immediate resignation over a sordid £124,000 scandal involving undeclared luxury gifts, shadowy offshore accounts, and a shameless campaign to crush his critics. This isn't just a political storm. It's a constitutional apocalypse that threatens to rip Britain's democratic foundations apart. The nation is on fire, with protesters flooding the streets, the monarchy poised to intervene, and the very rule of law hanging by a thread. Will Starmer step down, or will he drag the country into chaos to preserve his crumbling grip on power? Westminster is a war zone of disbelief and fury. The Supreme Court's historic judgment, broadcast live to a stunned nation, wasn't a gentle rebuke. It was a sledgehammer. Chief Justice Dame Sue Carr, her voice cutting through the air like a blade, declared that no one, not even Prime Minister, stands above the law. The court exposed a £124,000 hole in Starmer's property records, money that vanished from tax filings with no explanation. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The ruling laid bare £39,000 in undeclared perks, private jets, tailored suits, rare vintages, and a £15,000 Rolex, gifts from billionaire donors who bought influence while Starmer preached integrity. The hypocrisy is staggering. While he railed against Tory tax cheats, he was pocketing favors from the ultra-rich, trading policy changes for luxury, and silencing anyone who dared question him. The evidence is a gut punch to the British public. Court investigators trace a labyrinth of offshore accounts through tax havens like Jersey and the Isle of Man, places Starmer once publicly condemned. A £52,000 consulting fee from a defense contractor, with no contracts or invoices, reeks of influence peddling so blatant it could be taught in a textbook. Leaked emails reveal donors like Wahid Ali demanding policy tweaks in exchange for their generosity, and Starmer delivered, loosening regulations and quashing investigations. The court called it a betrayal of trust so profound it endangers democracy itself. This isn't just corruption. It's a calculated assault on the nation's soul. The streets of London erupted within minutes of the verdict. Tens of thousands of protesters, their voices a roaring tide, descended on Westminster, chanting "Lock 'em up" and waving signs that scream no one is above the law. Barricades are up, riot police are on edge, and armored vehicles have been spotted near the Supreme Court. Social media is a wildfire of outrage, with viral videos capturing clashes between demonstrators and security forces. The atmosphere is a powder keg, one spark away from mass unrest. Opposition leaders are circling like vultures, demanding snap elections, while Labour MPs are abandoning ship. One senior figure, live on air, branded Starmer a disgrace in a red tie. Even his inner circle is fracturing, with whispers of no-confidence letters and aides fleeing Downing Street in droves. Yet Starmer remains defiant, holed up in number 10 like a cornered animal. In a late-night address that reeked of desperation, he dismissed the court's ruling as a judicial coup and vowed to fight on. His words have turned a financial scandal into a constitutional catastrophe. For the first time in modern history, a British Prime Minister is openly defying the Supreme Court, pushing the nation into uncharted territory. Inside Downing Street, the scene is apocalyptic. Documents shredded, files burned, advisors walking out mid-meeting. Starmer's refusal to yield has transformed him from a leader into a pariah, isolated and clinging to a power that's slipping through his fingers. The court's ruling didn't just expose financial rot. It revealed a chilling pattern of abuse. Starmer weaponized his office to silence dissent, ordering government lawyers to threaten journalists who dug into his finances. Regulators were pressured to block Reform UK from televised debates, and donors critical of his leadership faced sudden tax audits. Court documents paint a picture of a man who didn't govern but ruled, using the state's machinery to protect himself and crush opponents. The court's words were damning. A systemic assault on democracy. Whistleblowers from Labour's finance team described a culture of fear, where questioning suspicious transactions meant instant dismissal. One aide's testimony cut deep. Ask where the money went, and you were gone by morning. The monarchy, long a silent pillar, is now stirring. King Charles III cut short his Balmoral holiday and returned to London for emergency talks with constitutional scholars. Palace insiders say the royal prerogative to dismiss a prime minister, a power dormant since 1834, is on the table. 3 scenarios are being weighed: a private ultimatum giving Starmer 48 hours to resign, a public rebuke at Parliament's opening, or a televised address declaring his government illegitimate. The last would be a constitutional earthquake, shattering centuries of precedent. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury has weighed in, thundering from the pulpit that no leader is above divine law. The crown, the courts, and the people are aligning against one man. Internationally, the world watches in stunned disbelief. The White House issued a rare statement expressing grave concern over Britain's unraveling. European leaders are holding crisis summits, bracing for financial fallout as the pound crashes to 2008 levels. NATO officials quietly question whether a fractured Britain can be trusted in a crisis. Diplomats are drawing up contingency plans for a total governmental collapse, with one EU official admitting, "We're preparing for the unthinkable." At home, civil servants are in open revolt, freezing Starmer's access to sensitive documents and even nuclear codes, citing his unstable state. One permanent secretary put it bluntly, "We serve the crown, not a rogue regime." The military, too, is on edge. Reports of generals refusing unlawful orders from Number 10 have surfaced, with armored units reportedly positioned near London. The prospect of military involvement in British politics, unthinkable for centuries, now looms like a dark cloud. Scotland Yard has launched a task force to probe criminal charges, while the Bank of England has frozen accounts linked to Labour donors. Protesters, now numbering in the hundreds of thousands, have seized Trafalgar Square and Westminster, their chants of "Starmer out" echoing like a war drum. Barricades are up, and the air crackles with the threat of violence. Starmer's defiance is pushing Britain to the brink. His threats to purge the civil service and call a snap election, despite lacking the legal authority, only deepen the chaos. The House of Commons is a shouting match, with MPs waving resignation letters and the Lord Speaker invoking century-old rules to recall peers without government approval. Legal experts warn that if Starmer persists, the Supreme Court could hold him in contempt, opening the door to his arrest. This is no longer about £124,000. It's about whether the rule of law still governs Britain or if one man can place himself above it. The nation stands at a crossroads. The courts have spoken, the crown is poised to act, and the people are rising. Starmer, once a symbol of probity, now stands as a cautionary tale of hubris and betrayal. Every hour he clings to power escalates the crisis. Every defiant word fuels a fire. Britain is no longer just facing a scandal. It's staring into the abyss of a constitutional collapse. The question isn't whether Starmer will fall, but how much of the nation he'll take down with him. The clock is ticking and the world is watching.